Hey guys, this week we are in Apex Unit 11, Lesson 2 and Lesson 3. This video is going to talk about Unit 11, Lesson 2. This lesson is about measures of center and measures of variability. Now, measures of center has already come up in some of your previous lessons in the last couple of weeks, so we're going to review those. And then measures of variability might be just a little bit new, so we'll talk about those too. So a measure of center represents the typical or the middle value of a data set. And mean and median are both measures of center. We have already talked about finding the mean and finding the media of a data set. Those are both ways to describe the measure of center of your data. Right, in order to find the mean or the average, you calculate the mean by dividing the sum of the values in a data set by the number of values. So you can see we have an example here. It says a school soccer team scores the following number of goals in their first 9 matches. What is the mean? Well, in order to find the mean, we add up all of the values. We add all of these up, and we'll get 18 for the sum. We're going to divide by the number of data values, which is 9, which gives us a mean or an average of 2. So we could say on average, the soccer team scored 2 goals. The other measure of center is the median. And the median is the middle value in a data set. Now, to find the median, there's 2 things to think of. If you have an odd number of values, the median is the middle value, the middle number. If you have an even number of values, then you have to find an average of the 2 middle values. So the first thing that you need to do when you're trying to find the median is put these numbers in order from least to greatest. So I'm going to do that right here. Alright, so you must have your numbers in order from least to greatest to find the median. And to find the median, you're looking for the middle value. Now we have 11 values, so we have an odd number of values, which means the median will just be one number in the middle. There's some different ways to find it. You can use this strategy if it's helpful. So 17 is going to be our median. Now in your lesson, you're going to be asked to find the mean and the median of a data set and then determine which is higher. Usually, most of the time, means and medians will be very close in range. They'll be close to each other. Sometimes they might be the same number. You might get the same number for the median or the mean. To find the mean, that's the average, you would add all these numbers up. That would give us a sum of 198. We would divide by the number of numbers, and then we get our mean or our average. Okay, so in this case, our mean is 18 and our median is 17. They're different values, but they're close together. The mean is actually higher in this situation. All right, now the next part of Lesson 2 is talking about measures of variability. A measure of variability is a number that tells how close or how far apart the numbers in a data set are. So there's 2 measures of variability that we're talking about. That's the interquartile range, and you'll see that abbreviated as IQR, and the mean absolute deviation, or MAD, M-A-D. Those are both measures of variability. All right, so the first one that we're going to talk about is the mean absolute deviation, or the MAD. So you follow these steps, you organize your data from least to greatest. Second step, you find the mean of the values, find the distance between each point and the mean, find the average of the distance, and that gives you your mean absolute deviation. So we have a table here. We've been given these numbers. This is our data set. This is the mean or the average of these numbers. So that's already been found. So what we're going to think about is this number and its distance from the mean. And one thing that your Apex lesson talks about, there's some number lines in there. If we know like this 6 is the mean, we can kind of think about these numbers on a number line about what their distance might be from the mean. So in this case, if we're looking at the data value of 4, well, 4 is 2 units from 6, so that's the distance. 5 is 1 unit from 6. 7 is also 1 unit from 6, and 9 is 3 units from 6. So now I'm going to find the sum of all of these distances, 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 3. So I'm going to add those up, and that's going to give me 8. And now I'm going to find the average or the mean of the distances. So 8 divided by 5. And when I do the math, I'm going to get 1.6. I'm going to round it up to 2. So we would say that this is my mean absolute deviation 2. All right, the next measure of variability is the interquartile range. And the word quartile that you hear in that should sound familiar. We talked about quartiles when we were talking about box plots. This is the interquartile range. And range should also sound familiar. We talked about that a few lessons ago too. So your first step is to organize the data. So that's going to be least to greatest. Find the median, find the first quartile and the third quartile, and then you can find your interquartile range. So here's an example. John kept track of the number of miles he jogged each day. His data had these values. Find the interquartile range. So my first step is to put these numbers in order from least to greatest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I have my 7 values, least to greatest. Now I'm going to find the median. Okay, so in this case I have one number in the middle. So this is my median. And this is helpful for my next step, which is find the first quartile and the third quartile. Remember, quartile has that base word that comes like quarter. We're talking about dividing our data into fourths. So if I'm looking at the left side, this 2 is going to be the median of that left side. And this is what we're going to call our first quartile, or quartile 1. Over here, this one's in the middle of that side of the data set. And this is our third quartile, or quartile 3. My next step is to find the interquartile range. So I'm going to take quartile 3 and subtract from quartile 1, and I'm left with 2, which is the range between my quartile 3 and quartile 1. So my interquartile range is 2. And if you think back to when we talked about those box plots, you can kind of picture when we look at our numbers, you can picture the box that's formed of the box plot. And remember that these lines of the box come from that first quartile and third quartile, and these would be your whiskers. All right, as always, remember to check back for Zoom meeting information for this week and let me know if you need help with this lesson.